Hi everyone, I'm Pam.
And I'm Elisa, and we are holistic infant and child sleep consultants and the founders of Restful Parenting.
Hey.
Um, Today, we are going to talk about the transition from two naps to one nap. We've had a lot of questions and inquiries about this pesky little transition recently, so we thought we'd come on and just do a little video, give you some advice and some tips on how to do it and what are some of the signs. So let's start with some of the signs that your child is ready to make that transition from two naps to one nap. First of all, we like for them to be within the age range of 14 to 18 months. Generally, children are not ready for that transition before that age group, unless it's something that you have to do because you are starting at a child care center that does not do that first nap. It is doable before that, but we like to wait. If you can, we like to wait until they're really good and ready before you make that transition, because then you get less of the sleep interruptions that can come along with it if you make that transition too early.
Yeah,
Um,
transitioning too early can definitely cause some extra sleep challenges that
yes.
you may not think about for sure.
Again, if you have to do it, you'll get through it, absolutely. But if you have the choice, it's better to wait.
Yes.
So some of the signs would be that they're within that age range, but also one of them can be that they're just taking way too long to settle for that first nap of the day, or they don't settle at all for that first nap and refuse to sleep for that first nap of the day. So this is something that you want to see happen consistently for a few days at least before you go ahead and make that transition, because sometimes they'll have an off day where they just will take a long time to settle. You don't want to jump too quickly. You want to make sure that they're ready for it first. So that's one of them. And then the other, the really common one that we see is that if they have a morning nap, they refuse to settle for that afternoon nap, or they refuse to go to sleep, or they're taking a really long time settling for that afternoon nap, which then pushes your whole entire day later and later and later. So we don't want that, and we definitely don't want them not sleeping for that afternoon nap. So if that's the case, then it might be time to start looking at making that transition. One of the first things that you can do if the afternoon nap is the one that's being affected and they're taking a long time to settle, they may be ready to make that transition, but not quite ready yet. So what you can start by doing is cutting their morning nap down by 15, 20-minute increments every few days, because sometimes they can tolerate an hour nap and still do well in the afternoon. And they can do that for a little bit before you have to cut it back even more. So start with that hour and then move to 45 minutes. Some parents, I went as low as 20 minutes before I gave up on that nap. And that was mostly selfish of me because I really liked my morning nap time, especially with my son, because I had work to do as well. So I would put him down for a little 20-minute cat nap and then get him to the afternoon and put him down at around 1 o'clock. So when you're doing this, you want to make sure that afternoon nap is right smack in the middle of the day, so that the nap is more towards the middle of the day, because that's where it's going to be when you make the move to give up on the nap altogether.
Absolutely. Of the two naps, that afternoon nap is the most important nap. So although at 6 months we focus more on the schedule, as opposed to those wake windows, that last wake window between last nap and bedtime is really important right up until they drop their afternoon nap. So we really want to make sure that during this transition we're getting them to that 12:30, 1 o'clock as quickly as possible. However, babies can be still quite tired in the morning. So you'll often find some mornings they can only make it until 11:30 before they start kind of crashing, right? So the goal would be then is if they're no longer taking that morning nap and you're pushing towards that one afternoon nap, if you need to start with an 11:30, quarter to 12 nap, that's okay, but it's short term. We want to make sure that we don't get caught in that 11 o'clock nap trap. That is, again, where that if they're sleeping at 11 until 1, Then they're up from 1 until 6:37 bedtime, and that's way too long for little ones to go from last nap to bedtime. So what you want to do is work on those, again, 15-minute increments. 15 to 20-minute increments seems to be manageable for little ones at this age. So, if you're starting at 11:30, do 11:45 for a few days, let his system adjust to 11:45, and then do 12, and then 12:15 until you're closer to that 12:30, 1 o'clock for the afternoon nap.
Perfect. So yes, that's if your child just all of a sudden gives up their nap and refuses to sleep, then just to recap, you can put them down a little bit earlier for a few days and then work your way up to that 12:30, 1 o'clock nap. The other thing that might happen is during this transition, your child may be very tired in the mid-morning. So avoid longer car rides if you can during that time frame. If you do go out places, then a few ways that you can try and keep them awake in the car would be to pass them, have a little bag of toys in the front seat so that every few minutes you're passing them a new toy, which would re-stimulate them and hopefully prevent them from falling asleep. You can play some music a little bit louder or sing really loudly, call out their name. I've even gone as far as to stop the car and re-stimulate them, go and kind of talk to them a little bit or take them out for a minute. Same if you're going for a longer walk, then you can see them. So if you start to see that really glazed over look happening, take them out, let them walk for a few minutes if they're walking. If they're not walking, then you can just show them around to re-stimulate them, because what can happen is if they do fall asleep at 10:30 in the morning and have even a little nap, or 11 o'clock in the morning and have even a little cat nap at that time, that can really ruin the whole rest of your day. And then they're surviving off of a very short nap that day. So you don't want this to happen on a regular basis. If it happens every once in a while, well, then there's nothing you can do about it, but you don't want it to be something that's happening on a regular basis. You do also want to be able, it's summer, you don't want to be stuck at home for the whole morning every morning, because that's when all the activities happen. So, use some of those tips to really try hard to keep them awake in the car on your way home. If your baby transfers, then that's something you can try and do every once in a while. Again, it's not something you want to do on a regular basis, but you can try and transfer them from the car to their beds. But a lot of times this ends in disaster. So just a warning. Yep. All right. So those are.
I do have another tip. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
It is quite common when you are going through transitions. So whether it's the 3 to 2 nap, the 2 to 1, or no naps, that we start to see disruptions in other pieces of sleep. So sleep has a lot of layers, as I'm sure most of you know. There's a lot of pieces when it comes to sleep, and sometimes working on one piece can throw off another piece. So it is very common during a transition for us to see some early rising. So don't panic. Read through our early rising article and search in the early rising within the group. We'll have more information in there as well. But
the key with the early rising will be to try and keep them in their sleep space until at least 6 o'clock in the morning, so that you're not reinforcing that early rising and you're not allowing their body's clock to set to waking up at that time every single day.
Yes. So some early rising is quite common. Stay consistent with your response. Very unstimulating, and that should get better as well. The other piece that you might see start to fall apart is the length of naps. So just because you've gone from 2 naps to 1, ideally they take the hour and a half that they used to sleep in the morning and the hour and a half that they're sleeping in the afternoon and combine those, but it doesn't always happen that way. Some children will absolutely, you'll transition to 1 nap, and within a day or two they're doing a nice 2+ hour naps. But for others, it takes a little bit of time. So 40 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and a half. So keep working at it. Stay consistent. Again, same rules apply with that early rising, right? So if they're up from a short nap, we want to try and keep them in their sleep space a little bit longer, keep it nice and dark, very unstimulating, minimal stimulation, so that we're not encouraging those short naps. So short naps and early rising can be part of the process when you are making that transition.
Consistency will be your key to success, as we always say. So, if you do have any other questions about this topic, then feel free to comment and ask your question. But this is a fantastic topic for our Pick Our Brain calls. Our Pick Our Brain calls are for, if you're not necessarily looking to teach independent sleep, but you have questions about schedules, the nap transitions, whether it's 3 naps to 2 naps, 2 nap to 1 nap, starting daycare, and you'd like some tips on how to get your child ready for that transition. Those are all topics that we talk about within our Pick Our Brain calls. And those are one-on-one calls with us where we talk about your specific situation and kind of give you some tips on how to get through that. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, we will also post some of that information in the comments for you. All right, so have a great day, and hopefully if you're looking into making this 2 nap transition soon, 2 nap to 1 nap transition soon, this gives you some tips.
Have a great day, guys. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.